Good afternoon for those of you in the East, and good morning for those of you in the West. Welcome to HMG Strategies live virtual broadcast of the CIO Summit of America. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be with you here today digitally. We wish we could have been with you in person at the Summit of America at the Hyatt, our 12th annual summit, typically 300 to 500 people, which has been rescheduled to August of this summer. The date will be TBD soon. We have a world-class program here today. Thrilled, our first virtual summit, truly a rock star panel, a rock star setup of speakers and panelists. I want to introduce Harry Mosley, Global CIO of Zoom, to the program. Harry, great to have you here today. Welcome, Harry. I think you might...
Sorry, I forgot to, it's like here I am, cobbler's children have no shoes. I forgot to unmute myself.
You're the rock star, man. You're our model and our leader here in terms of digital. What an incredible time we're going through. Leading courageously through a crisis. Talk to us about your experience. You've been a CIO in 3 different companies over 3 decades, probably 3.5 times over. What are you thinking about now? What are you seeing out there across all of the clients you work with and in our industry?
Yeah, thanks for that, Hunter. It's the last 3, 4, 5 weeks have been sort of really humbling. And we're obviously all living in an unprecedented time. We've never actually experienced something of a global scene like what we've been going through for the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've been sort of thrown into a work from home experience at, sort of at size and scale of a global scale, which we've never had to do before. And the challenges are also unprecedented. I was talking to the CIO for a firm earlier this week, and, he said, Harry, it's like I've gone from managing a couple of 100 offices around the world to now 55,000 offices around the world, because everybody is working from home, which brings a whole set of different characteristics to their profile. And then the question is sort of what is work from home? And then the various different challenges that come from work from home. I'm sure most of us have worked from home at some point in our past careers, but that was typically early in the morning, late in the evening, or a little bit on the weekend. I don't know about everybody else, but this is week 4 for me, where I've been sort of grounded and working from home 12, 14, 16 hours a day, and not quite sure when we're going to come out of this. My instinct is that this is, again, having talked to lots of people over the last several weeks, of the CIOs, CTOs, chief digital officers, COOs, CFO, like you name it in the C-suite. I've talked to them, and people are now beginning to believe that this, what they've got up and running for their organizations is, quote, operational. And so there's little things to be done, tweaks to be made, but by and large, organizations are functioning to some degree.
But Harry, take that, got to jump in here, take that to another dimension, because we're really looking at a different work style, lifestyle, working at home with tools and platforms like Zoom and other collaboration tools. Productivity can really scale and accelerate, and people's overall wellness and happiness in their work style could actually be much better than making happy people or happy and productive employees.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's like, there's, I use these 2 phrases frequently now. So there's LBC and LAC, life before Corona and life after Corona. And again, this is not my, it's not my prediction per se, but it's when I have fielded the question, what do you think like life is going to be after Corona versus before Corona? Everybody comes back consistently saying it's never going to be the same. Work will never be the same. Why? Because, many organizations, and I'm sure there's many of our panelists who have opinions on this too, many organizations wanted to move to a more distributed environment. They wanted to do it. They wanted to have people working from home. They wanted to allow that to happen, but they have been hesitant about it. Now we've all jumped in the deep end. Everybody's working from home. Um, Employees by and large are happy. There's a lot of people though who really like the social environment that they get from working in the office, but there's sort of new things happening in that space. And they're making great contributions, and they're learning how to sort of work in this quote work from home environment, although it is challenging if you've got a couple of kids running around. And we've heard stories about sort of how the kids are sort of crawling all over the keyboard in the middle of board meetings and what have you, but this is the new world. And employers are happy too, because they're getting great contributions from their people. They'll get great commitment from their people. They get more loyalty from their people. They're getting great productivity, and they wanted to do this for a long time. So now they're actually doing it. It's akin to, sort of, in many ways, I hate to raise the topic, but, 9/11 changed the world forever. And I think that Corona is going to change the world forever too. Principally because as a CIO, as a CTO, you've always planned for a disaster. You've always planned for the business continuity. And that was always sort of like isolated to a particular city or a particular geographical area or a particular type or set of incidents. I don't think any of us ever planned, or if you did, that's pretty amazing in my book. Never planned for like a global event like this, where everybody was going to be working from home.
Right. So when you think about just today now and go back a month, what are you doing differently, and how are you thinking differently about all of your work style and your performance and your team at Zoom? You're the guru. You're the guy. Tell us some tips on what's working for you guys, and how can we all help pivot our companies into this new digital platform, digital world?
Yeah. So, well, we're a 9-year-old startup, right? So that went public a year ago. But everything we do is SaaS based. We have no on-prem. So we're a company that was born in the digital age, so to speak. So we're a complete digital company. And given what we do as a business, for us to pivot from having people working in the office to working from home, it hasn't been a real big challenge for us, to be honest. It has been a challenge for people, some people who weren't necessarily equipped to working from home, didn't have the right setup for working from home, don't have the right space or the right furniture for working from home. As a company, we focus on three areas. One is obviously supporting our clients. They're paramount. So the quote that I use frequently is, there's no ask that's too small or too big. Ask me and I'll see what we can do. And then, sort of communities at large. I mean, I'm sure everybody read about what we're doing in the K through 12 almost on a global scale at this point in time. And then, and then anybody else that we can help, prospective clients, charitable organizations, hospitals, medical, World Health Organization, CDC. There's like a long list of organizations that have reached out, or we have proactively reached out to see how we can help them. So it's been very humbling, quite honestly, to sort of be at Zoom and living through this pandemic. Yeah.
What an exciting time, right? I think I saw a note on the newsfeed this morning is the number one platform or number one app that really matters right now is Zoom. Did you see that news story?
Yeah, it's like I wake up every morning and it's like there's two things that hit me three things that hit me right away. One is, sort of where, what's happening from a coronavirus from the world perspective. And that's usually very disheartening, quite honestly, because the numbers just seem to be, sort of going straight up all the time. And the number of deaths. So that's not a great way to start the day. Then the second thing the second set of things I get is like a whole bunch of asks of people from around the planet. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? From, whether it's education or medical, etc. And then the third is, sort of all the publicity that we've managed to attract over the last few weeks. What was it I saw? I think there was a New York Times article They quoted like the Gen, what is the Z in Gen Z? Z is for Zoom, or
there you go.
Or it's like because of all the colleges have shut down their classes and they've moved to all online. Some of the kids are calling it Zoom University, so because they're all taking their classes on Zoom.
Actually, my son does do that as well.
It is very humbling, though. It's helping a church in New Jersey get their church service up and running on a Sunday morning so they could bring all their families together. I mean, how cool is that? Or you saw in the Wall Street Journal about some kid was quarantined and it was his bar mitzvah. And he did his bar mitzvah over Zoom. Or you got old people joining on their phones and their iPads because they're lonely.
Yep.
And they need help, and they've got no one to talk to, and they can't see people.
Harry, we got kind of close out this session. Final comment, final word from Zoom and the future.
Yeah, so not so much sort of the future. My advice to people right now is you just got to follow your gut, do what's right. We as CIOs always like to be strategic in our thinking and strategic in our objectives. I think now is the time to be agile about that. Talk to your peers, talk to your network, get their advice. If it sounds good and it works for them, take it and just run for it. And everybody should be, staying healthy, individuals, families, friends, colleagues, etc. And just looking forward to getting out of this, like everybody else.
We all are.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Hunter.
you so much. Global CIO for Zoom, Harry Moseley, a dear friend and a partner for some time, a national partner of HMG's. We'll see you at the August summit in New York City, Harry. Hopefully.
That's correct. Now, am I supposed to drop out a video, or you want me to stay here? I don't know what I'm supposed to do next.
You're going to drop
out. I'm sure somebody told me, but you know what I'm like. It's like I don't pay very well. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Harry. Okay. Next up, we have Nicole Egan, CEO of Darktrace. If many folks probably know Darktrace. It's a fascinating company with a really interesting background. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here today. So when you think of, you lead and run a global company, fascinating, the origin, the roots of the company right out of London. When you think of what we're going today in an unprecedented health and economic crisis, what have you learned and how have you led through the crisis, your global company? It's got to be fascinating.
Yeah, we like many other companies, had to transform a global workforce. We have 1,200 employees across 46 offices, but we have customers in over 105 countries. So shifting very quickly, to how we work, obviously remotely. Luckily, a lot of our functions, such as our cybersecurity threat analysts, our security operations centers, were already set up for remote work. So that transition was probably easier for us than for most. But I think in terms of what I've learned, I think a big part of the learning is it's a great reminder that we're all part of one global community. I think before this, I always highly thought of myself as part of the Darktrace community, the employees, our partners, our customers, and then a subset of that, the bigger communities, the security community we live in. But I think this has just been an amazing reminder that we're all connected and it's one big global community.
How's it affected your company strategy?
I think from a company strategy perspective, probably like many companies, it gives you an opportunity to redefine yourself a bit. I think, for Darktrace, we started in a world where there was a lot of on-premise network. We then made the transition to cloud, added email. But I think now with remote workers, we're putting together, for example, a new remote worker, offering. People are more interested now in protecting things like your collaboration platforms like Zoom, your email platforms where we're more heavily utilizing, email communications and relying on it more than ever. It's remote workers, it's being able to see every person on all of their devices and get that visibility. So for us, in terms of company strategy, I think it's giving us an opportunity to accelerate some projects that we already had underway and just bump them up in priority. I think another big trend we're seeing is self-service. So many of our customers want just, as you move to full digital infrastructures, people want that sense of immediacy. how can we make everything that we offer absolutely self-service? You know, before we might have to get access somehow to somebody in a data center. That's not possible now. So moving those models very rapidly to full self-service overnight has been a big push for us.
You know, thank you. When you think of innovation through a crisis, typically innovation happens best when you limit resources, right? And you're required to move differently or pivot differently. When you think of customer engagement, product innovation, leading your company and the performance of your employees, what stands out?
You know, I think in terms of employee engagement, you know, first, obviously, everyone had to make sure everything worked for them remotely, and we did that very quickly. But I think certainly after that, once we knew that we had activity, so we had all of our employees engaged, you know, reaching out to customers, reaching out to each other. Now I'd say what we're focused on is how do you turn that engagement and activity into productivity? And that's kind of what we're analyzing now is what are the productivity measures and metrics that we can have to make sure that the activity is up, but also the productivity is staying up. So that's kind of we've had some new internal ways of reporting on productivity that we've been really engaged in. And I think that's kind of the phase we're in right now. So converting activity to productivity.
Excellent. Very interesting. You know, shifting gears here, when you think of the latest cyber threats in this changing landscape across the world, what are you seeing now? Because we have the security in the home workforce, right? How do you do that, and how best to make sure everyone's safe and secure?
Yeah, you have two major factors going on kind of at the same time when it comes to the security trends. So the first one is you have that remote workforce, right? So people just using consumer-based technology now at home. You know, I heard Harry talking about just, or even people's offices set up right at home, right? So you have a flurry of people who are probably ordering technology from Amazon and Best Buy and everywhere and kind of enhancing their home offices overnight. And that brings with it a load of security challenges, right? That's no longer technology that's locked down and controlled. And in fact, a lot of that remote technology isn't protected by your legacy security devices. So I think the first thing for executives to think of is, okay, as we've moved to this consumer-based remote technology, where are my security gaps now that didn't exist 2 weeks ago? But the second part, which is absolutely despicable, but it's a fact of life, is there's been 16,000 new COVID-19 domains registered in the last month. Now, some of those are to you know, get out valid information, but a lot of them are basically a combination of fake news and also domains that are being leveraged by the attackers just to get inside, to use this opportunity of disruption and of interest around COVID-19 to break into corporate networks and corporate systems and corporate clouds. And so we've been providing a lot of assistance. In fact, we're running a lot of free of charge services for folks to help protect against that. And the problem is these domains are being registered so fast that the security systems that rely on knowing known good and known bad can't keep up. And so kind of the uniqueness of Darktrace's approach can help people out. So we're offering a lot of, you know, free services and free trials to technology to help counter all of those, you know, fake COVID sites that are positioning themselves as the CDC or others when they're really not.
It makes sense, Nicole, knowing you as a professional and a person dialing in at that level. Thanks for doing all you're doing. When you think of just simply what's unique about Darktrace, some updates about your whole go-to-market and what's unique about keeping the enterprise safe and secure.
I think, you know, the unique approach that we take is we emulate actually the human body's immune system, right, as a form of defense. And we do that by using machine learning that understands self, that understands what makes each company unique. And a great example of that is if you were operating a certain way 2 weeks or a month ago, our machine learning would automatically learn your new sense of self, how you now have transitioned to this remote workforce. And we can keep up with and analyze the pattern of life of every employee and how they're connecting now versus how they were connecting before. And we use that knowledge of self to then find these unknown or novel threats. I think another big trend we're seeing is the threats are now moving so quickly that it's really no longer about automation, it's about augmentation. It's about augmenting human security teams with machine learning and AI, and not simply just automating known processes, because everything's moving too quickly.
Interesting times, right? Some happy customers or logos that you're working with now that are referenceable that you like to talk about, or that you're able to?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that's been really interesting is, with cybersecurity, it covers all vertical markets, it covers all sizes of organizations. And I think one of the things that we've seen is, because we work with all different industries, I was worried about the impact of this obviously on, cruise lines, let's say. And then I found out that actually the cruise liners are saying, well, this is a better time than ever to actually do a technology refresh, because it's a unique opportunity. They usually don't have time to actually put new technology on all these ships. So, we've been having great conversations, I think, with everything from hospitality. We continue to protect a lot in financial services, e-commerce, but also national critical infrastructure. And we do a lot normally with critical infrastructures like things like energy and water supply. But overnight, the definition of critical infrastructure is changing. We're actually now working more closely with food manufacturers, which has now become maybe as essential as other aspects. So I think for us, it's been across the board. We've seen just high levels of engagement. And again, I think especially pay attention to this new definition of essential versus maybe critical infrastructure, because that's changing overnight.
Well, thank you so much again, Nicole, for your support of the HMG network and your passion in the industry. Final word about what you're really excited about or passionate about. And folks, please do come to the Summer of America in August. Nicole will be with us.
I think what we're excited about, I think now's an opportunity for all of us as leaders to continue to be bold. I think it's about reassuring employees, reassuring customers, but also being bold about maybe accelerating some of the projects that we had from a technology perspective. And I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. Thank you, Nicole. We'll see you soon. Take care.
See you, Hunter. Take care.
Bye now. Okay, folks, next up we have Bhavin Shah, founder and CEO of Moveworks. Moveworks is a fascinating company out of the Valley, just successfully raised a B round. A round was led by Lightspeed. B round had investors, including the chairman of Microsoft. And Brian, Bhavin, welcome, and welcome to Brian Hoyt as well, eventually. Bhavin, how are you?
Great. Thanks, Hunter. Hi, everyone. As Hunter mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Moveworks. For those that haven't heard of us, just a quick background. We're an AI platform that can, out of the box, autonomously resolve IT support tickets submitted by your employees. Our system does this to the tune of about 30 to 40% today for some of the largest enterprises. First of all, I want to start by welcoming Brian. So Brian, thanks for joining us today. I know that we're all facing unprecedented change and impact. And really what we wanted to get your perspective on is how you're seeing this whole shift of work from home impact your organization, and really how are you using AI to deliver this? Needless to say, lots has changed, just in the last few weeks. I know for us, we have, shifted about 150 of our employees, the entire workforce, to work from home, which has been a learning experience for myself and the team. I know that you guys have 3,500 employees across lots of locations. And so, really what we wanted to do today is just focus on understanding how you're managing that switch. But before we go into that, I wanted to just rewind. I know that we went live in your environment about 2 months ago globally. But what were some of the problems and things you were looking to address with AI as you we're seeking out new solutions?
Sure. So we're a pretty fast-growing company at Unity, and when you're telling a growth story from an IT perspective, you never want to see your headcount scale linearly with the rest of the company. So how do we find leverage and scale our business without adding a bunch of people? Because first of all, it takes time to hire people, especially in the marketplace now. And then distributing our workforce globally. We have about 3,500 employees, you mentioned, but we have those people in about 35 offices, which is kind of a crazy ratio. And clearly I can't put IT support person in every single one of those offices, right? Because some of the offices have 25 people. So we're really looking for ways to sort of accelerate the traditional IT service model and get people support faster.
Yeah. So, now that we're all facing this overnight switch, and you probably went from 35 offices to 3,500 offices.
Yeah.
IT ticket volume has skyrocketed. We've been tracking that across the industry, and seeing that now IT is very integral with every department. How is AI helping you deal with the burden and the increased demand that's coming in?
Well, I think one of the most interesting ways it's dealing with is because we were heavy users of Slack at Unity, and sort of the inbound route that our tickets were coming in is heavily through Slack, right? Not a lot of people at Unity are going and filling out a IT support ticket, et cetera. So they're getting pretty much already real-time help from our team, but I actually don't have a way to talk about that. So putting in your technology allowed us to know exactly how much this support spiked, because otherwise I would have just kind of had to pull some Slack analytics, I suppose, to figure out what was going on. But I think that's been critical. We've seen a lot of increase in requests, and it's great to talk about it using your platform and knowing that we have had some huge increases.
Yeah. I mean, I think we just had Harry on the call, but 500% increase in Zoom provisioning.
Yeah.
We've seen in your environment, and that's sort of indicative of what we're seeing across the board. At a time like this, answering questions for employees, helping them stay up to speed on changes in company policy are more important than ever. But also ensuring that they get that information is harder than ever. How do you see a role that AI is playing in helping keep employees up to speed? Now that we can't have all hands in person, we can't have posters put up on the wall, we can't communicate some of this change management like we used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because we do have a lot of the analytics and information around what is coming in. We show that you mentioned the Zoom increase in requests. So now that we know that, it helps us message around, how do we use Zoom? Who really needs the pro account versus the user account? And it helps us focus where we can really message around the employees. I know you guys are doing some thoughts around what kind of communication challenges to answer people's questions. People are looking for guidance from executives on what to do in this situation, not just in the company, but in their day-to-day lives too.
Yeah. Another thing, that's obviously transpired very quickly across the country is Genius bars are now empty. No one's at the office. And so
Right.
We're having to rely on digital channels. And so now that we're fully digital and there's no physical component, how's that been like? What are some of the things that you guys are seeing and able to support with these new?
Well, I think first of all, I'm grateful that that this has happened now and not even 5 years ago, because I've said this to my team and to our company over and over, that without some of the technologies that exist now, such as Slack, Moveworks, Zoom, Okta, et cetera, all of this seamless integration of sending essentially 4,000 people home and relatively seamlessly would not have been possible. And I think if you look at not using those, there's a lot more pain around that. So we were luckily already pretty digital at Unity because we were, again, born in the digital age, kind of like what Harry mentioned.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think, now that everyone's at home, we miss many of the things we probably took for granted in the past, right? We whiteboards to collaborate with coworkers. You don't have the co-presence in the conference rooms. So we're completely reliant on our laptops and our apps and our accounts to stay productive. And so when something doesn't work, IT support is more urgent than ever because we don't have these other ways to solve our problems. And so talking about time pressure, how does how does this new shift for you get addressed in terms of using machine learning and AI to shorten the time that you can service your employees?
I think it's a great point, because one of the big values that we saw when you were first in our office talking about your roadmap for your company was, how can we automate some of the things like, hey, I do need Zoom access. I don't need someone on my team to push a button for it, so they can focus on the more urgent things that happen. Apple pushed an update yesterday and sent 1 million warning messages if you had legacy extensions. And so we've got a lot of those pressure things, and people can ask a question in our channel, and we have a knowledge-based article or some information that Moveworks could share with them. It maybe intercepts, even one response is a value for us at a time like this when our demand is off the chart, because we haven't added a bunch of people to solve this problem, right? It would be impossible to scale our support demand along with our headcount. It just takes too much time. Yeah,
for sure. I remember sharing some notes with you, last week, but I think you guys had a all hands event, and you had your Ask IT channel, and dozens of employees started asking for access to Zoom.
Yeah.
And our system was able to right away intercept those asks and provision it, taking care of it, in basically real time. In a few seconds, those folks could join the call, which was, I think, 5 minutes later. So
yeah, it's great. I mean, the power of that is just amazing, that someone can ask for something and have that intercepted by your technology and provision, which in the past would have taken someone to actually go in and click around a bit.
Yeah. So last question, look, I think, there's been a fair amount of skepticism when it comes to AI, just like there is with any new technology, before it becomes a standard. Why are you confident about AI more than you've been in the past, and kind of tell us how you're thinking about it?
Yeah. I think, especially for a company like my company, when we first met, you presented me with a problem that you could help solve, a real problem that needs to be solved, and something that's really impactful for us as a team. And when I sort of look through the hype and the buzzwords on these things, that's really, I think, what I was looking for was a discrete way that we could solve some problems. And ours is a problem of scale. So you helped us scale, and that's exactly how I think about using any new technology, where it's AI or whatever. But I think that the more discrete problem solving products that we see, the better off that we'll all be.
Yeah, focus is key. Well, Brian, thank you for your time and
absolutely
sharing these thoughts. Look forward to more updates and opportunities to kind of share your journey with this community at HMG.
For sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Bobby. Can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Great job, guys. Bob, when you think of the future of AI, just kind of one kind of parting question, the potential for AI and really helping the CIO drive innovation and really move up the stack and really being that innovator for the business. What's your vision there?
Yeah, well, I think, it's as Nicole was saying, the real frontier is not just thinking about AI as a new capability, but really operationalizing that and making it deliver value each and every day, and understanding the places where it can. It's not some panacea that's going to solve every problem, but where it's having an impact, where we see it having impact is in these very focused areas. Language is hard, for example, and we still haven't solved it from a computer science standpoint, but we are really good at understanding IT speak and IT language. And so that's an area that we're seeing a lot of opportunity, as CIOs are now faced with greater levels of support requirements, being put on their plate. And so I think it's, as Brian said, look, being very practical about it, being very, very pragmatic about it is what we're seeing more and more. I think a lot of people talk about AI in terms of what's the next 25 years going to look like. Who really cares? Let's talk about what the next 2 weeks is going to be like, because the world changed 2 weeks ago, and people want stuff that works out of the box, not with months and years of professional services and training. They want things that have been driven 1 million miles before they get into it and they get to use it. So I think you'll see more kind of strong AI solutions come to market, which are products that can deliver value right out of the box, like with the work we're doing at Moveworks, like Darktrace, like a few other companies, rather than it being this kind of science fair project or kind of Home Depot, but do it yourself model.
Yeah.
Bob, and thank you so much. Great job today.
Thank you.
And thank you, Brian.
Thank
Folks,
you.
we're going to move to our virtual panel now. Nikki Frederick, our on-site Zoom guru, is going to bring the whole panel onto one page, right, Nikki? And 1 minute. Excellent. What a great opening session, right? Happy to say those three partners, Zoom, Darktrace, and Moveworks, have been great fans and partners and supporters of HMG on a national basis. So looking forward to more work with them and hearing more about their interesting innovation that they're bringing to the market. So welcome, panelists. I see Ralph Laura from Lumentum. Welcome, Ralph. Angela Yoakum from Novant Health. Welcome. Bob and Shaw from Moveworks. Welcome. And we have Steve Philpott from Western Digital. Welcome very much. And I think that is, and Wendy Pfeiffer. Wendy, welcome. So, when you think about leading through a crisis, right? Everything's changed in the past, say, 2 to 4 weeks. Little context. Angela, why don't you take it from the top? You're in a healthcare organization, probably right in the epicenter of thinking through strategically on a global level and on the North American level and the local level. Novant Health is perhaps one of the premier leaders around innovation and client care just in time. A little context and initial thoughts on this current crisis and what you're doing differently?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. In fact, of course, we have the same sorts of focus areas that every industry does related to business continuity and remote work. And we're fortunate in that we had a bit of a head start in that space. So that's not been a huge focus from a time perspective, because that had been done. But when we think about the other two focus areas, one of them is communities healthy. So right now, we have people who may not feel well, who may wonder if they have the virus, who may have questions about, how to care for someone if they have the virus. And so providing resources to serve those folks, to keep them from having to come into one of our facilities and potentially contract the virus or spread the virus, that's one of the things we can do most effectively to stem the spread of the disease. So, for example, we have a chat bot that has had, thousands and thousands of views, tens of thousands of views on a daily basis. We have virtual visits. We've had tens of thousands of virtual visits that we've conducted over the course of the last handful of days. We have 2,500 physicians and thousands of advanced practitioners who have been conducting these video visits. We've, of course, done everything we can to help the communities not have to come to an emergency room to be tested for the virus. We can help them understand if they even need a test by going through the chatbot self-assessment, by having a video visit, by using one of our Tyto Care devices that allow you to take your vitals at home. There's so many different things that our communities are availing themselves of that we've been able to provide. So that keeping the community healthy is so important. And then the other piece is, of course, our acute care facilities, our big hospitals. We're preparing for, the tsunami of potentially very ill patients coming in to get care. And that is a capacity and throughput issue that is unprecedented in our lifetime. So that's all I'll say about that for now, but suffice it to say that that's also a tremendous focus, and the sorts of things that we're trying to do in support of that anticipated onslaught is, they are significant. It takes up quite a bit of our time.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. Ralph, you're at Lumentum, and you had an early point of view or data point as this broke out in China and worked its way across the globe. What did you learn as you tracked this across the globe, and what are you doing differently here now in North America?
Yeah. We, as it turns out, had a big ERP integration project that had gone on for the better part of a year, and our cutover weekend was the last week of January. And the intent at the time was to ship about 30, 40 people, ultimately a team of over 50 people to Shenzhen, China, to be on-prem at one of our big factories to do the cutover. So the good news is, because we've been through, SARS, and we've been through MERS, and we've been through some of the other issues in prior years, we had planned for that. We had, as part of our failure case analysis in the program, understood that that could be a risk, and we made plans to have alternate approvers, alternate command center, and we triggered that plan on the 20th of January, and went live, had a great go live, a very smooth go live, luckily, but in part because of that planning. Since then, our executive team has starting the 28th of January, started meeting every morning. So we meet every morning at 6:30 on a video call. We engage around the current events, what's occurring site by site. Of course, first and foremost, it's how do we keep our people safe? Then it's how do we keep our customers? How do we meet the needs of our customers? And literally, we've been doing this every day since the 28th of January. We instituted a global travel ban. Way back then, we instituted our version of social distancing in the end of January. So we stopped allowing visitors to our site. We required any visitor to have a executive approval. We required them to be screened in terms of their prior movements and some other things. So very cautious approach based on past experience. And what that means is globally today, we have factories in Japan, in Thailand, in China, in Italy, and we have none of our employees has yet been confirmed with COVID, and we've been managing through this issue very, very cautiously.
Excellent. Thanks, Ralph. Wendy Pfeiffer, the CIO at Nutanix. Wendy, you're one of the most thoughtful executives that I know in the Valley. And what are you doing leading through this crisis? What's your whole mantra and go to market look like?
I think the biggest change for us, we're a global company. We were already operating globally, and we had done a lot of thinking about scaling as an organization globally. So we had some pretty cool things in place. I think the biggest challenge for us has been making sure that we could scale, making sure that folks could stay connected, and most importantly, making sure that our interaction design and all of our tools and our employee interactions was good and solid and supportive. One of the things that was unexpected about this crisis for us was the fact that a number of our employees ended up going home thinking they'd return to the office and then not being able to return. And especially in India, where we have over 1,000 people, a lot of those folks did not take laptops home. And so folks are now working from home computers over home networks. And the challenge with that, we were concerned when it came to cybersecurity. We were concerned when it came to just having enough internet bandwidth available, et cetera. And so we pivoted very quickly to a VDI solution. We use a couple. We use Citrix for those who need persistent desktops, and we use our own product Frame for those who need persistent profiles. And in particular, Frame over home internet in international locations, doing some of our development remotely under those conditions has been a game changer for us. The other thing we rely on fairly extensively is Moveworks, and we have an application we've built called XBot. And with XBot, we were just looking at some of the statistics. We use it already for about 30% of our interactions, but in the last week, I'm just looking at the statistics here. XBot provisioned 2 times more software than usual, so we're doing lots more remote software provisioning, which is something we've been trying to get to, because it turns out that Moveworks does that perfectly, as opposed to us who don't always do it perfectly. 3 times more provisioning of Zoom than normal, which is pretty interesting. The other thing is we included both Frame and Moveworks in our overall BCP planning. And so we had put together a fairly comprehensive package on how to work from home, everything from setting work hours, et cetera. We put that together, and we already trained Moveworks to be able to answer employees' questions about working from home. Can I get reimbursed if I buy a keyboard, et cetera? So, XSpot, Moveworks is answering those questions and even helping folks to get provisioned with remote desktops. So, it was supposed to work that way. I'm relieved to say it is working that way. And there's been almost no impact across our, I'm going to say, 7,800 to 8,000 employees and contractors.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll be back to you in a minute. The follow-up question. Steve Philpott from CIO from Western Digital. Most everyone knows you in our network. Steve, what are your thoughts on leading through this global crisis, and what are you doing now differently that you were not doing just a month ago?
Hey, thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it. As Hunter mentioned, Steve Philpott, CIO for Western Digital. I guess the starting point is welcome to the new normal for working. Harry mentioned it a little bit. This event is going to change the way we work forever. And one of the, I noticed on the questions, one of the attendees just asked or mentioned that, not too long ago, companies like Yahoo and others didn't want anybody working remotely. How times have changed pretty quickly. So I think if I take a look at some of the things that that we're kind of looking at, maybe there's like 5 or 6 that I touch on quickly. Our first is putting people first. As leaders, that's our job. Our job is to ensure the safety and health of these employees remains a priority for us. Second, and several of the panelists have talked about this already, it's the importance of communication and the importance of the robustness of our communication and collaboration tools that enable it. So if you take a look at, communication is more critical now than ever before, and whatever level of communication we're doing, we need to do more of it. It's probably not enough. And then on the robustness of the communication, Ralph talked about ERP go lives. Same thing for us. The first week of February, we had 4 factories. The first week of March, we had another 4. We didn't plan on doing those remotely, but we did. So again, we're having to adapt, and the collaboration and communication tools are a big part of allowing us to adjust quickly to this new paradigm. I think if I look at the third one, it's around us modeling leadership characteristics. As leaders, we're there to support the employees during these times of crisis, and this will require more active listening, more empathy, being transparent and authentic. So while we're talking about modeling, the fourth thing is actually IT as a role model for the rest of the company in how to work remotely. I mean, many of us in IT, we've been working remotely for years and years, and now it's an opportunity for us to help the rest of the organization understand how to work in this remote mobile environment. And probably the fifth one is kind of the tips on how to work from home and personal insights and stories. Again, trying to be considerate of the stress people are going through while they're working at home. The personal things. We created a virtual water cooler just so we could have fun and share some things that you would normally do in the office, and you don't want to lose that connection. And then the last one I would say, and Bhavin and a couple others touched on this, is this will be a time of innovation. Innovation will be a necessity, and I think we're going to see that drive for the next level of innovation as we go through this process. So again, welcome to the new normal of working.
Thanks, Steve. A follow-up to that regarding the new normal of working and innovation in IT. In 5-10 years ago, if the IT group was innovating 10%, 90% was operational and keeping things going. What's the new ratio of innovation that you're striving to deliver for the enterprise?
Well, it's gonna have to increase. And a couple of folks have talked about kind of some of the innovative tools that are available now. I mean, just think about, and all of us on the panel can probably relate to this. Think about the 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we couldn't have scaled 3 to 5x in 48 hours. And most of the organizations that we're talking to right here, we've all had to scale 3 to 5x in like days. You know, so before the COVID incident, we would average maybe I'd do 3,000 conference calls a day. Right now, I'm doing over 11,000 conference calls a day. Our VPN connections, I might be maybe 1,500 to 2,000 a day before this incident. We're passing 15,000 simultaneous connections. So again, the tools that we have right now are actually allowing us to scale. And now we're adding things like Moveworks to where we're going to get that next level of innovation about being able to respond even faster. So it's actually putting to use a lot of the tools we've been implementing for the last couple of years.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Bob, and over to you. A follow-up question. You're CEO of a company that's been growing really fast in the Valley. What kind of challenges did you come up against leading an organization courageously through this crisis? And how'd you handle them? I can't hear you for some reason.
Okay.
There we go.
We got it. You know, we've always been a work from home culture. I'm sorry, a work from the office culture. And so this shift to work from home has been, you know, quite different for us. Now, we are a young company, so we were born in the cloud. All of our applications are in the cloud. So that transition hasn't been all that difficult. But what we spend a lot of our days right now doing is working with customers, partners, CIOs on this transition. And that has been quite interesting to see, right? First, as I mentioned before, Genius bars are dead. You know, there's no one going there. There's no way that people can support their employees physically. So now everything is moving towards a digital, you know, meme or means in which, you know, they can, or they need to provide that support. Communication is also key and central. As Steve pointed out, you know, email is dead. Email is something that's, you know, it's clogged in everyone's inbox. It's very hard. These lists, now for the first time, you're discovering not everyone's on the list that they're supposed to be on, and you send out these notifications and not everyone's picking them up. And so these enterprise-wide collaboration tools is actually big and growing significantly within that kind of the CIO community that we're a part of. 2 years ago or a year ago, you know, I would go into a new meeting and talk to, you know, a prospect, a customer, CIO. 50% of them had a strategy around chat and collaboration, and they were implemented it and they had, you know, sort of deployed it. 50% were like, well, we're still debating, is it going to be Slack or Teams, or is it going to be, you know, Glip from RingCentral, or is it going to be, you know, Google Chat? And we still don't know when we're going to deploy it. Well, that has completely been solved, because in the next 2 months, every IT department is making that decision now. What's the enterprise-wide collab tool? And how do we roll it out? And how do we then disseminate that sort of information? And I think as everyone's pointed out, you know, this is not a blip. This is going to be a change in how we all work. Working from home is going to be a lot more accessible. And we're going to realize actually we can all be very efficient, you know, using these channels. So it is going to be an interesting period for us to all test these assumptions, but I think it's going to really leave us with a new way to you know, get productivity out of our knowledge workers.
Exciting stuff. Thanks, Bob. Back over to Angela. Angela, as a follow-up question, you at Novant have always been very innovative as a company. You have a brilliant CEO that you're very dialed into. What is it about this crisis that you're looking at it as an opportunity to up-level the discussion, the C-suite, and up-level how you go to market? I recently had a personal visit, and it was all done remotely. And I know you guys have been in there for a while.
Yes, that's a really great point that I think all industries should be should be looking for those opportunities. So oftentimes the head of technology, the CIO, the CTO, we find ourselves, and this has not been the case for me at Novant Health, thank God. To your point, I have a very unique situation with my CEO and the other executive team members. But for a lot of my career, I found myself in a position where I was sort of, hey guys, we have this line of business here, but there's this amazing adjacency, and if we just put a little bit of investment in, we could eclipse the revenue that we make over here in the traditional line. And there was always a struggle and difficulty in getting people to move. And now's the time when all of those adjacencies, that particularly the ones that are based on the digital channels that you guys own and run, now's the time for those channels to come in and provide that revenue boost that is so dearly needed across most industries right now as we struggle with the ongoing crisis. So I think, who was it that once said, never let a crisis go to waste, or something like that? I may be getting the wording wrong, but this is certainly the moment where all the preparations that so many of the leaders on this session right now have prepared for. Now's the time to bring those preparations forward and get that engagement that we haven't historically found easy to get. So this is a time for us.
What are you doing differently then in terms of your leadership style in the business with the C-suite and the board to help really kind of cement that next leg up of innovation? What are you thinking about, and how are you it's going to unfold over the next year, but what are you thinking about?
So as you know, we have an Institute of Innovation in Artificial Intelligence that I co-founded with our Chief Medical Officer. We have a number of constructs in place that allow us to very easily and readily work with a variety of third parties who are creating extraordinarily innovative solutions, many of which are not even commercially available, and incorporating those solution sets into the mechanisms that we are bringing to enhance patient care and provide that remarkable level of care that we strive to provide every time. And so, there's no shortage of opportunity and no shortage of appetite across our system for incorporation of those sorts of game-changing capabilities. So it's not so much that we've had to change anything. In fact, we are all hands on deck addressing the COVID-19 crisis right now, 24/7. Without question, with a lot of people on the front lines of it we're trying to support them. But it's these mechanisms that support innovation and allow for those sorts of step change ideas to come into the system that are making adapting to the crisis easier for us. So it's that groundwork that pays off in times like this.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Angela. Hey, Ralph, back over to you. When you think of your leadership style over decades, you've had many different roles as a CIO. What have you learned over the 20, 30 years of being in the seat? And what are you doing differently today in this crisis as you lead forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think over the last decade or two, we've seen this pivot, right, or this evolution of CIO from kind of back office role to CIO as digital leader, playing a more strategic role in companies. Boy, if you haven't made that pivot yet, now's your this is your defining moment. You're either going to get, you're going to step up or get stepped over in terms of digital leadership. To me, I think of the role that CIO plays in general, but specifically in this disruption, I don't know what to call it, crisis, disruption. Clearly, we're tool providers, right? So that's our job. We're tool providers of the systems we use to stay connected and productive. Systems like Zoom. In the chat window, we've been talking about VPN and other access and Wi-Fi. So we're the tool providers of the company, and that's fine. That's a role we play. It's an important role we play. But in addition to that, as Steve pointed out earlier, we're also role models. We've been living for 20 years with virtual teams that run around the globe. Not only keeping them connected, but how to stay motivated, how to drive culture in a team that's in a different geography, a different country, a different language, and often wears a different badge, right? Their contract employees are not badged employees and so on. So how do you keep people engaged, active, motivated, aligned in this sort of digital world? We've been doing it for 2 decades. So it's time for us to step up and help other leaders in the company with some of those skills, some of those experiences. As a customer, so we're all customers of Harry, we're customers of Eric, we're customers of Bhavin. I've had I have a bunch of offshore teams in India, as does Wendy and Steve. When Modi put out the edict that said everybody stay home, we'd already been talking for 2 weeks to them, our offshore partners, about what's your model? Do they have laptops? Do they have VPN access at home? How are you going to secure the network? How do we address these issues so that we had an action plan in place for what we felt like was the inevitable home order? So if you're not managing your supply chain, your IT supply chain, your cloud providers, your managed service providers, et cetera, in this time of crisis, like, you've got to step up, because they don't manage themselves, and you've got to understand their plan, how it relates to your plan, and how your technology stack dovetails or doesn't, in order to do like Wendy did, scale quickly into a new model of EDI kind of overnight for hundreds of thousands of workers. And then I think, last but not least, and none of us has talked about this much yet, IT is budget owner. IT in most organizations has a portion of a significant, non-trivial portion of the SG&A spend in most companies. And that's just changed. It didn't get better or worse. It just changed really quickly. And I think 3 major things are happening. One, a lot of us are spending, I'm sure, Wendy's provisioning or Steve's pivot to new ways of working, enabling remote workforces, didn't come for free. Most of us have, hey, I'm going to go redirect the way my spend is happening. So some of my fixed price is still fixed, but a lot of my variable costs are super variable now. How do I manage those? How do I get in front of those? And what other variable costs are coming down in order for me to feed these models? And then the second category, I think, is, there's a lot of companies that, they're not going to have the revenue this quarter they had last quarter. They're not going to have the revenue next quarter. The revenue sources may change dramatically. So as leaders, sitting at the table as an equal player and with budget responsibility, all the other players are on the table. How are we adapting our spending to meet the new reality of our SG&A and our P&L? So how do we figure out how to make those choices happen? And to me, we've categorized IT spending into run, grow, transform. So every line item, every single line item in the IT budget at Lumentum has been tagged with one of those 3 attributes. It's been tagged as whether it's fixed or variable. It's been tagged connecting to one of our three strategic initiatives as a company. And it's been tagged to one of my 5 BUs. So I can instantly go and say, oh, the Datacom BU is having a banner here because we can't sell modules fast enough to power the growth in the internet. So I want to make sure their projects get fast-tracked. Another BU may be delayed because the laser BU sells into the manufacturing market, which is going to have so we can make those pivots and those decisions really quickly as a team without going back and saying, hey, give us a couple of weeks to go back and review the budget.
Great.
So 4 big areas.
Ralph had some, hey, sorry, Ralph. Stumped all over you there. Hey, Ralph had some great comments. Just the things like the redirection of the cost. We've been putting spend into these tools, and this really tested some of that tool and the capability. I kind of joked internally with some of the executives. We built that scalability in there to maybe help us for the next round of acquisitions. We didn't actually build it in with this in mind, but it applies, regardless. So it was kind of interesting. And then Ralph piggybacked on the IT as a role model. And I think that is still one of the biggest things that we can really, really help the organization with. Because as Ralph said, as I was saying earlier, we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing it with internal people. We've been doing it with contractors. We've been doing it with our vendors around the world. And we can show the rest of the organization how to be productive, because there's a different method to working remotely. It takes kind of a different mindset sometimes. It takes some different tools, and we can really, really step up and help the organizations.
Hey, one of the things that Michael Conway asked earlier in the session in the Q&A was, hey, people, and Harry had mentioned it, we're all working 12, 14-hour days where it seems like there's not enough time to get things done. My comment was, and it has been to several people, is, we've gone from the working from home versus office model to, I don't know if I'm working from home or I'm living at the office. Like there's no break, like it's the same. And so we've gone model where we're encouraging people to set sort of office hours. Hey, I'm going to be online for these 9 or 10 hours today, and then walk away from your computer, turn off your collaboration apps, go spend time walking the dog, in the yard, hanging out with the family, because we're in it for the long haul. People are going to get burned out. We need to make sure people have permission to unplug when the home and the office are the same thing.
I like the approach, Ralph, to build on that, kind of other guidelines or principles around, what defines a successful new culture of engagement, right? How do you have those virtual principles around how to be engaged? When we bring Wendy into the discussion? Wendy?
Yeah, we have, wow, so many things we've learned just in the last couple of weeks. For me, the big thing has been just keeping my team healthy. And so what we did is, we set schedules, but we actually allowed people to set really different schedules than their normal work schedules. You think about somebody who has young kids at home and is engaged in homeschooling, they might be available, say, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., but then they might need to be offline until 4 p.m. and then hop back on again from 4 to 8, let's say. Or someone who is, all alone in their home or their apartment, they may just need to take some mental health breaks and get out and move a little bit from time to time. And so we've asked folks in their shared calendars to mark their available times, to let us know when they're not available, and then we're just shifting how we work. That part's a big deal. The other thing that's a big deal is we've been more open about embracing consumer technology. Let's face it, we're all in these sort of fish bowls of whatever we were doing with consumer tech at home before we suddenly married our IT tech with that. Ultimately, I guess what I'm talking about is, in IT, it's like the others were saying, we're the folks who have always operationalized, who have always married technology with how other things work. And so we're uniquely aware of the consumer tech in our homes, the work technology and how that's interacting, even the communities that we're a part of. So marrying those things together. And in my case, I've learned, the biggest lesson I've learned is, for me as the leader, to declare the structure, to say, here's what it's going to be. In this calendaring system, we're going to mark our free and busy time. We're going to allow folks to declare their schedules, and those schedules will need to be declared in week-long increments by this date. We're going to use these tools for collaboration. We're going to automate these things. Just bringing that structure has been actually a stress reliever for all of us. And we measure productivity and we measure NPS on everything that we do. And since I declared the structure and sort of led with that, that's spread outward to other teams in our company, but also we see our productivity turning back around and improving. My team members were telling me that they were working those 16 to 20 hours days as we made this pivot. And we're back down to folks working, 10, 12, which is, half a day. So things are getting better.
And Wendy, a little follow-up on that, your C-suite and how they're engaging you differently just in the past month.
To be honest, we have such a great respectful relationship already with the C-suite. I think it's an advantage that I work for a technology company that makes products for the C-suite and the technology space. But I think, if anything, it's been more personal. There's been folks reaching out saying, secretly, can you show me how to use this thing, or how can I figure out how to handle my home setup? I will tell you, a thing happening in our company and on our Slack channels is this focus on our setups, how your home office is set up, kind of like the gamer space. We have had so many people asking questions about, how can I get one of those curved monitors? How can I improve the mics? I know I would love to be telling you a more profound thing at the moment, but the fact is we've actually just focused in on our environments and our connectedness in really, really cool ways. I will add one more thing. I think, across the C-suite, we're trying to understand what can we offer, especially as leaders. What sort of wisdom do we have to offer? And in this case, I will encourage everyone on the call we are technologists, and there are so many industries that don't have that expertise. And so I see all of our C-suite not only connecting with each other, but also reaching out to schools and to other organizations just to help them to use the technology and sort of teach them some of the things that we've learned the hard way.
Thanks, Wendy. Appreciate it.
Can I jump in here?
Hey, Hunter. Hey, Hunter. Just picking off of what Wendy was saying. You know, that whole home environment setup has been interesting, and we've kind of had fun with that a little bit. You know, so the Brady Bunch, 3x3 that we have here, we've got a thread on our intranet where people are posting pictures of their version of the Brady Bunch. You know, we called ours the IT Bunch, but people are just having a blast with that. And the other thing that was really interesting is just kind of what happens during a meeting. So we just had a meeting with the executives a while ago, and one of them was talking, and then all of a sudden you could hear the doorbell ring, and sure enough, the guard dog went into attack mode. He was going to protect the house, and 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been disruptive to the meeting. And in today's time, we all kind of understood that, and everybody just kind of laughed and joked with it a little bit. And so you kind of have to give that little bit of space, as we're going through these times. I don't know if you guys have seen similar things.
Hey, we have. Let me jump in here, Hunter. I think the other thing that's interesting is, a couple of comments about, IT as a strategic player and the transition. Hey, if you were, most IT leaders historically, or a lot of leaders have struggled kind of building executive relationships, playing that strategic role. And in the past, I used to talk about, if you want a seat at the table, pull up a chair, meaning contribute, have the conversation, engage, get out of your office, get out of your organization, go interact with the business and have a point of view. Now, I think my analogy would be, if you want a seat at the table, open up a video window, right? Because it's hard to stay connected to the business when you're heads down running your org and dealing with all the operational challenges we've been talking about, right? It's how quickly do you think you're going to be relegated to the Zoom equivalent of the AV guy in this crisis if you're out of sight and out of mind, right? So you need to be if you're not having daily conversations with, at least in chat, and you're not having weekly, video conversations with your key stakeholders, your CEO, your CFO, your head of operations in your company, you are not playing a strategic role in this crisis. So you've got to be front and center, leading not just from an IT, from a, hey, how many seats do we need and how do I get the VPN working, and boy, your audio's cutting out kind of perspective, but leading from a strategic, how do we respond, how do we enable, how do we change business process, how do we adapt to the new normal? That's your role. And if you're not doing it, again, my comment earlier, if you're not stepping up, you're going to get stepped over.
Ralph, you're right on. We've been talking about this at the HMG network forever. Great leaders are great storytellers, great communicators. They communicate often in person, virtually. And now with the distributed workforce, the need to be able to articulate your thinking and communicate via Zoom or Ring Central or whatever, the platform matters, and you have to be able to master really this digital format, right?
Yeah.
Bobby, jump in. You talk to a lot of CIOs. Bobby?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that we care a lot about. I think as you described, CIOs needing to communicate, I think you guys are the conduit for lots of information now. You guys have the most mature support organizations in the company, and people are going to come to you for that information. Kind of a funny story. So 2 months ago, our named entity recognition models, part of our machine learning framework, had never seen the term COVID-19. And so it initially assumed COVID-19 was a JIRA ticket. And it started to classify these as JIRA requests or JIRA, questions. Of course, the system then was trained and we rebuilt some models, and we got it to understand this domain. But now we're working on a new frontier where we're starting to understand a lot of terminology around work from home, around COVID-19 and questions around that. And now we're getting as good in that as we were in the IT world. And so I think what we're seeing a lot of, and the role that IT plays is bringing to life a lot of their knowledge database. We've seen customers just in the last 10 days add 50, 100 new knowledge articles, trying to help employees self-serve, trying to help employees answer questions like, am I allowed to go back to the office to go pick up something? You know, can I still do this? Can I still do that? And knowing how to answer those and being able to light up those databases and understand that language is I think key. So I think someone said it before, but you know, over communicating is going to be the key to success, especially since we're all speaking to each other through the internet pipes, and we can't you know, nudge each other, can't walk up to one another. And then, you know, from our perspective, really the job of AI in many cases, and especially in crises like this, is to do the routine, mundane work that still needs to be done, right? And as others have talked about, you know, seeing a 500% increase in Zoom requests or other, you know, WebEx requests, you know, seeing a doubling of troubleshooting questions, being there reliably and quick is, I think, where, you know, we're staying focused while other new things emerge. I think there's going to be new problems that we haven't yet even thought about after we go out, you know, after we, you know, all go back into the office and things do start to come back online. And I think for us, it's about, you know, being very nimble and evolving very quickly, you know, with our customers.
Here's a question for you, Bob. And we're going to open up for Q&A from our viewership. We were over 200 at one point here, right around 160 now. When you think about how everyone's time is stretched now, keeping things going, keeping the lights on, and making sure it's all connected, how do you facilitate or accelerate a culture of innovation in this time? What are some tips on that? You must talk about that all the time inside of Moveworks, Bob.
Yeah, I think you know what I've found is folks that are able to try new things are inherently in environments where there's no fear of failure. There's no sense of, hey, if you try this and it doesn't work, you know, you're going to get all the blame. I think we find that you know, a lot of customers see this as something that they need to do and that they need to keep iterating on and keep evolving. And so I think that the way to engender innovation, not just amongst IT, but across the company, is to make it safe. Make it safe to fail, make it safe to take risks, make it safe to try things and to push it out. We've seen a massive acceleration of go lives for our product. Typically it takes 4 to 8 weeks. We did our fastest go live in 2.5 weeks. And every customer is like, you know what? All that hesitation we had, just go and implement it, get it out there. Let's not, you know, hem and haw about every little detail. But that's key, because now they'll learn about things that are unique to them, you know, 4 weeks sooner, and which will allow 4 more weeks of iteration and improvement. So I think speed is everything in these times, and I think speed is central to a lot of the innovation we're seeing in tech. Excellent.
Thanks, Bob. Over to Steve. Steve, what does winning look like for you today in this environment, today and into the next 3 months?
Yeah, so I think a couple things are going on, and you know, kind of you identified it as more of the kind of short term. So I think if we're looking at it, one is it's taking care of our people. You know, making sure that you know we're listening to them, making them as productive as possible. Second is then focusing on the business, and so for a lot of the businesses, you know, especially for the panelists on here, you know, we've got supply chains, you know, we've got manufacturing around the world. We've got to make sure that we've got the things in place to keep the business running. So those are probably the two biggest things: is the people side of it, and then keeping the business running.
Got it. Great. Got it. Ralph, over to you. Same idea?
Same idea. I mean, it's the people first. We've been very focused on our people from the beginning. That's what makes the magic work. And B, so one of the things I think that's important is a lot of people have different situations. Not everybody has a comfortable environment that they're sheltered in. Not everybody has the ability to sit in a room privately with the door shut and work. We've talked about it earlier, dogs coming in, kids coming in. We have 2 employees who are we were going around, we did a virtual happy hour and talking about people, hey, where are you? Who are you with? What's going on? And it dawned on me, we have 2 employees who are sheltered in place with their kids and their ex as they're working through this together. And I'm like, well, that's got to be kind of an awkward environment to try to be productive in. So everybody's got a different thing going on in their personal life. So relate to that, be human, be empathetic. Wendy talked a lot about this as well. Biggest thing is it's all about your people, like it always is, only more so. So stay connected, spend the time kind of going around with your teams. And then on the business side, like I said, don't think your job is to keep your head down and keep the bits moving. Your job is to help solve this problem, work out new models of working, solve some of these gnarly business process issues that, I mean, kind of the analogy discussed earlier, never waste a good crisis. To Bhavan's point, lots of opportunity to drive adoption and innovation, and people more willing to accept trying new technologies now than ever before. So be creative.
So, one of my old standbys is the best time ever to be an IT professional, Ralph. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. Wendy?
Just as we're, I don't know, thinking about the next few weeks, the other thing is to keep ourselves connected to each other. I'm learning a lot in this conversation today, and I think we'll continue to be able to learn a lot from each other. Understanding how to deal with a crisis for 2 weeks or 3 weeks is one thing. That's our sport. But understanding how to deal with this thing over time, especially as we have team members impacted with family members and others who are falling ill. That's something where we need that resilience and that strength. And I will also say, please reach out to the vendors who are providing product that you're using to support your operations, and tell them your new requirements for roadmap and your new requirements for features. We're getting a lot of those at Nutanix, and even as a customer of Nutanix product, we're sharing a lot with our teams. I know we're sharing a lot with you, Bhavan, in terms of our new requirements for Moveworks. And look, we want to help, right, for Zoom as well. My gosh, I've learned so many things. But we want to, as vendors, we want to know what you need. And as employees, we need to be able to express that too. I sit on a few boards, public and private boards, and I am being engaged often to explain how technology and operations come together to support business. And so I would say all of the IT leaders who are listening as well, you have something the world needs right now. And even if you're not, socially adept, it's okay. Please find a way to share the knowledge and the wisdom that you have, because we sit in our little, rarefied rooms, and we're not realizing that so many people are just completely, unsure of these technologies, unsure of these tools. So there's that piece as well. You've got what a lot of folks need right now that just feels natural to us to know. And then, like, the last thing I'll say is super cool feature in Zoom. You can go in under video settings and click touch up my appearance. For those of you who don't look great first thing in the morning, it's like the best feature ever. So I highly recommend that you check out like the fun features and all of the tools and products that you're using, and share that with others.
Excellent. Thank you, Wendy. Great closing comment. Appreciate your being here today. We're down to the last few minutes, folks. Ralph, do you want to do a final word on a sign-off kind of thought? Ralph, you want to final word?
Yeah, final word is, like I said, one of the things we've talked about, people have thought of this transition time, right? Hey, it's going to be a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, a couple months. Who knows how long it's going to be? And while I won't say it's the new normal, because I don't think this is normal. We'll get back to some more interaction and some more physical presence. Definitely, this is the acceleration of digital. If you've been trying to get to digital, it's been a tough cultural change, process change, technology change. Now's your time to really think about what are the most impactful and important things. The analogy we've been using is just like running a race, right? We've all been running a race before. You didn't have time to change the tires, put in oil, refuel. We've all been hit a caution flag, right? We're all in the pits. We're all doing our pit stop. So what maintenance are you doing today? What investment are you making in your team, your tool, your engine, your tires, so that when you get back on when the green flag is out, we're back on the race, whatever it looks like, that you're best positioned to win the race.
Excellent. Thanks, Ralph. Steve, final comment?
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think I think I'd kind of go back to the leadership comment that I was talking about, at the beginning. It's time to really model that leadership. Our people are expecting it. It's that active listening. In almost all my calls right now, I start by asking the team, how are things going, at home? How are you coping? Again, having that empathy and just being transparent about the information that you have, I think that's just going to be one of those critical skills as we manage through this.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Great to have you on the program today. Bob, final comment?
Yeah, no, I think to echo some of the other points made is that during this time, people are worried, people are scared, people don't know what's going to happen. Our schools in the Bay Area just announced yesterday that they're now extending to May 1st with no school. And so there's constant changes and things. And I think how IT plays a role is going to be central to the employees' experience and belief in the company. I think there's a lot of other ways that we can make sure employees are happy when they're in the office. But now, with this being the only channel, a video conference call or an email reply, support is front and center. And so I think that, what we try and help, our customers do, folks here on the call, is just be super responsive. Be there when they need it, respond to them right away, give them answers, tell them that someone's working on it. Not after a few days or a few hours, but within seconds. And I think that'll give people a level of comfort that they're looking for, that their employer, that their company is looking out for their best interest.
Thank you very much, Bob, and great comments and great thought leadership today by you and all the panelists, as well as our presenters. Harry Mosley, great job. Really appreciate everyone's engagement, Nicole's engagement as well. This is our first virtual summit. Hopefully our attendees found this of high value and the content, thought leadership inspiring and really dialed in. I thought it was seamless, really a brilliant session by all. Wendy, thank you so much for making it, and Steve. Stay tuned. Next Monday, we have Monica Caldas, the Senior Vice President and CIO of Liberty Mutual, on with us at 11 a.m. for Eastern for a virtual briefing. We're going to spin this up and model all of our summits into July off of the digital, as well as a Monday and a Friday program as well for 40 minutes. Take care, be safe, and thanks everyone for being engaged. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.